You now need 135% of your pre-retirement salary to successfully retire, says a economist at Duke University. All right, so my man, I forgot who sent this to me, but let's go into it because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassingly bad, and the fact that the mainstream media ran with it is it's embarrassing. We have been taken over by technocrats who hold themselves out as behavioral economists with a PhD who work for the Southern Ivy Leagues or the Ivy Leagues. It doesn't matter. And yet reality is floating away on a whole different boat. So we're hitting the fork of the road. One's reality, one's advanced by the academic elite, and we seem to be going to the road that's advanced by the academic elite, which is going further and further away from reality. So let's read this. It's sad because a guy I'm somewhat fond of, Dan Ariely, or whatever his name is, from Duke. All right, so we're going to start with this one right here, the golden rules. This from TurboTax. This is what the guy has sent to me, and basically just skip down through here. We're going to see, let's find hold on just a sec right here. All right, so the number one, okay, how much is enough when it comes to retirement? The number that's being buzzed around the retirement world is 135%. That's the new replacement ratio, basically the percentage of pre-retirement income that one needs to earn yearly to maintain their comfort level of retirement. It's freaking so stupid. That's so stupid, but let's go with it. All right. The long-regarded number for one's retirement replacement ratio was much lower, about 75%. Dan Ariely, a professor from Duke, is the author of the 2011 study that blew the lid off many Americans' retirement plans. His study caused some backlash within the financial community, but the bottom line is that you can never be too well prepared for retirement, whether you're planned for 75 or 135%. That's simply silly, and we're going to delete that because that's a dumb argument. So let's read, we'll read more into this. So here we go from Robert Powell. Will you need 135% of your salary in retirement? And let's read what this guy says, and then I'll just I'll kill this whole thing. It's not in its infancy anymore. Unfortunately, I wish I could kill it in the crib, like Ralph Northam in Virginia, but we just have to kill it in his, is it not a toddler, but 8 years old now. All right, is the mother of unanswerable questions in the world of retirement. How much of your current salary will you need? The replacement ratio rule of thumb suggests 75% to enjoy the same standard of living while in retirement as before. And all that is silly, the same standard of living while in retirement as before. What is wrong with that? What inherently was wrong with it is before you're living, you're not in retirement. Why would you enjoy the same? Why would you have the same standard of living regardless? I mean, that doesn't mean you're going to go spend more, spend less. Two completely different aspects of your needs. One is as a retiree, one is as a pre-retiree. Those two things are completely unique to each other, for sure. But according to research by this guy, Dan Ariely, people need 135% of their income to live as they want in retirement. Oh, to live as they want in retirement, says Dan. So see how he says, so Dan is phasing this as how do you want to live in retirement, and thus you'll need 135% of your pre-retirement income, whereas Robert Powell was saying to enjoy the same standard of living in retirement. So Dan actually is asking a better question. How do you want to live in retirement? The reason for this astounding difference has largely to do with the way this professor of economics did his research. Instead of asking people to ballpark how much their final salary they will need, he asked the following questions. How do you want to live in retirement? Where do you want to live? What activities do you want to engage in? And similar questions geared to assess the quality of life that people expect in retirement. There's a big red flag right here, right out of the gate. All right, so we'll talk about that in just a second. He then took those answers and itemized them, pricing out their retirement based on things that people said they'd want to do and have in their retirement. Using those calculations, he found that people want to retire at a standard of living beyond what they currently enjoy. Who wouldn't if money were no object? And here's his blog post, which I'll read here in just a second. Ariely didn't respond to questions about his blog post. But I'm fond of his work, and I've quoted him often. Needless, his blog has the financial advice community up in arms. For one, he suggested in his blog that financial advisors are getting paid far too much, 1% of assets, and to help people build a nest egg. That's 60% too low in its estimation. All right, so basically saying you're paying advisor too much and you're not building enough of your nest egg. I completely agree with that. On the first part of that, you're being paid too much for not doing it, for actually hurting value. I do not agree with the second part of this, so that is 60% too low. 2, he criticized the use of the ubiquitous risk tolerance questionnaires that label investors as aggressive, moderate, or conservative. I agree with that too. I think those risk tolerance questionnaires are silly. From my perch, however, the questions that Ariel's research raises has to do with his current salary replacement ratio. How much of your current salary do you really need to replace in retirement? Is the salary replacement ratio a good or bad rule of thumb? If it's a bad rule of thumb, what's a better one? And what are the pros and cons of that better rule? Experts say it's very hard to estimate without any precision. All right, so we got some Harvard professor. In some ways, life after retirement is relatively inexpensive. For one, the expenses associated with working, raising a family, and maintaining a home are typically much less after you retire. On the other hand, life after retirement is when expenses might be high. Costs associated with travel, leisure, and healthcare might rise. They might rise, but because they're at such a low healthcare, in particular, at quite a low threshold to begin with, a high rise doesn't mean it's going to dwarf, again, the number one cost, housing. At the moment, we don't really know which argument wins the day. Yes, we do. We just look at BLS, Consumer Expenditure Report, which every single year dictates the same thing. Now, I think it's every 2 years I do. University of Michigan, Health Retirement Survey or Study, and then we got HHS, Health and Human Services, and there's another one too that did a study. I'm drawing a blank what that was. I forgot. But anyway, we got lots of research on independent studies that all validate the same thing, that you spend less in retirement. The biggest expense that you have is housing, for sure. Some, including this professor, a guy at Vanguard, says 75% is as good as number as there is. Well, I'd still challenge that. Georgia State, right? Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Georgia State, which puts the replacement ratio at 81%. And for those with a final salary of 50, that's, again, we've talked about this before, but even that's silly. But the off quote is 75%, while good needs to be tweaked based on one's income. All right. Let's see. Good or bad rule. Let's see here. So the guy from Harvard says, my personal view is that households should generate enough retirement income to replace about 75 to 100% of their pre-retirement income. All right, so we got right here from our biggest weakness of replacement ratio models is the most important retirement risk is ignored investment, longevity, and risk of potentially catastrophic costs, as my man Jack Vanderhey at the EBRI. I agree with that. Replacement rate calculations are often overly simplistic and potentially inaccurate. I agree with that. but the funny thing, I want to show you guys something. As for Ariel's survey, one of the principles of behavioral economics is that there's a difference between what people say and what they do. I don't buy his studies conclusions at all. I'd be curious to know where all the people who want to retire, because he didn't. I thought he did say that here. He didn't share his study. That's the thing. See, that's what I thought. Didn't respond, but he wouldn't. So he did not share his methodology. He didn't share anything. And it's stupid too. And here's his study right here, asking the right and wrong questions. Let's see if I can't make this bigger. It's stupid because, all right, Josh, so you said you want to travel. Yes. Well, how long you want to travel for? 5 years. Okay. Are we using that in his guy's study? The whole thing is just stupid right out from the gate. I'm thinking this is what is economics today. It's crazy. So, Josh, you said you wanted to, friggin' buy a boat and sail around the world. Yes. All right, so we're going to have you doing that till you're 100 years old? It's just dumb. You don't do that. And the idea that it's just the whole thing is crazy. And the fact that you're not showing us the data set, why would, but look, we got to clickbait. I wonder if this one right. Yeah, okay, we'll see. So I want to share with you right quick. Because I do agree with this, absolutely. In our study, we took a different approach and instead asked people, how do you want to live in retirement? Where do you want to live? What activities do you want to engage in? We then took these answers and itemized them, pricing out the retirement based on the things that they said they want to do and have in their retirement. But did they say when they want to stop or when they will stop? Who did you ask, Dan? Other professors of economics who are going to travel all over the world from Duke because they're all rich people up there? It's crazy. You see why I'm confused about the 1% of assets under management business model. Why pay someone to create a portfolio that already is 60% too low in its estimation? And 60% is this if you get the risk calculation right. But it turns out the second question is equally problematic. To show this, we ask people to tell us how much risk they're willing to take with their money. Just the whole thing's dumb. Financial advisors should be helping clients with these tough decisions. Money is about opportunity costs. Every time we think about buying a car or going on vacation, we should be asking ourselves what we won't be able to afford in the future if we do make this purchase. All right, so and then we got the blog. I want to see if there's no comments on any of this stuff. I don't. There wasn't on the other thing. I don't know if I don't think there was here either. Yeah, was there? Yeah, how are there not comments on this? Crazy. So let's go and I want to see the HBR. That's the Harvard Business Review, and I want to see if they got comments here. All right, no comments. So I don't understand. So anyway, no comments on any of this stuff. The issue, the idea of saying 135% and not showing your survey is you just got to throw that. I mean, look, this Michael Mann stuff, man. Michael Mann, the hockey stick clown. This is the same thing here. And unfortunately, I like Dan. I've read a couple of things. I found him interesting. I think he's a guy looking. He has a solution. He's looking for a problem, frankly. And I think this is another example of that. I think a lot of academics, they got too much time on their hands. So they're looking for, they have solutions. They're looking for problems. I have a solution, get rid of CO2, do a carbon tax, do carbon trading. And you're like, well, CO2 in and of itself isn't necessarily the problem when it comes to climate change. They're a big guy. But these guys have too much time on their hands, and this is a way they can enhance their reputation by creating problems that don't exist. There's no way 135% retirement replacement ratio is valid. I'm sorry. I've done 8,000 videos on this, but it's embarrassing to me that this actually gets street cred as if there's any legitimacy to it, especially when there's no detail in the survey. So anyway, whatever. I just laugh, and I'm sitting there thinking, man, keep writing this stuff. I know this is a few years dated, but the one from the TurboTax was just last year. It'll keep me employed for many years to counter the silliness that is out there in the media when it comes to financial stuff. I will see you.